Welcome to The Fast Track, the podcast that helps Kiwis get into their first homes faster. Brought to you by Aera. I'm Derek, the founder of Aera, and today in this episode, we've got one of our team, Ella, from the marketing department, who graduated from university last year and is already well down the track on a plan for her first home. So we were going to dive into that now. Welcome, Ella.
Thanks, Derek.
So Ella, can you just give us a quick background on you and where you're at in life?
So I've graduated out of uni last year and started my full-time role at Aera. So here I am, year down the line now. So I've been saving pretty hard this year. And since being with Aera, I've realized how important it is to actually get into your first home. I probably wouldn't have even thought about it to this point, or I would have probably thought about it, but it wasn't really one of my main concerns.
Do you think it's something that a lot of your friends are thinking about right now?
Not so much. I think they're kind of all just on their own paths, figuring what they want to do, transitioning, saving here and there, finding a job, finding what their niche might be, but not actually set on a goal like saving for your first home.
But that's a goal you've decided is important to you and you're kind of committed to it.
Yeah, well, I want to get into my first home within the next 1 to 2 years,
Whoa.
solo.
That's crazy.
So
hang on. That's wild, right? Like most New Zealanders would think that's impossible, you know?
I guess once you kind of lay it all down and realize that you can get there if you save really hard and you push yourself and you find ways to do that, it is possible.
So what's that savings journey been like so far? And what are some of the decisions you've made?
It's definitely changed as the year's gone on. At the beginning, I was kind of just trying to save as much as I could, but I was just dipping into my savings constantly because it was accessible and I was just looking at it and I was like, I want to buy this, I want to buy that. So I'd just pull money out whenever I felt like it. And then as the year kind of went on, I decided that I actually needed to split it off. So now I've got it in 6 different categories, as you could say. So I've got spendings, I've got my fixed expenses, I've got an emergency fund, I've got investments, I've got money that goes into a term deposit, so a 3-month term deposit, and an overnight savings as well. So I guess the most strict account that I've got is the 3-month, and the overnight one I don't really touch either. Everything else I can access, but I try to get it out my account as soon as I get paid pretty much.
That's pretty strong discipline. So you're left with a little bit of money at the end of each week to spend on things that are kind of, I guess, niceties?
Yeah, well, I sort of follow that typical 50, 30, 20 budget rule where you put 50% into savings, 30% into your expenses, and 20% is, well, for me, that goes to investments and emergency fund. So I've sort of been following that. It does kind of change depending on what's happening in my life. Like I've done a bit of travel recently, so I've definitely...
So you're tempted to dive in?
Sometimes, yes, but the good thing, because I've split my money out into now 6 different categories, I choose wisely between which category I want to pull from so that it doesn't actually affect the overall picture when I take the money out.
And how did you set up like your original budget?
Sort of just looked at my money and I was like, what can I live on comfortably and how can I do this so that I'm actually saving a good amount? And I've got some goals within the middle of next year and the following year of how much I want to have by that date. So I kind of worked backwards and reverse engineered it and figured out what do I need to save now to get to that goal.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty clever because I remember you told me months ago a dollar value that you had that you wanted to save by, I think it was, November or December this year, which I thought was pretty aggressive and inspiring. Like, oh wow, you've already set that goal so early on. So
yeah, and I got there and then I did have to dip into it and then but I passed it now again, so
right.
It's fine.
So overall it's like on the trajectory that you want it to be on.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And do you talk about this stuff with your friends and like how does it, how do other people do it, and are you kind of unique or do you think a lot of people are trying to tackle this similar ways?
We don't really talk about specifics with money. I mean, I got a job straight as soon as I got out of uni, so I've kind of had that little head start, whereas some of my friends got a job 6 months down the line, or they didn't have a job and they still don't. So everyone's kind of in these different situations. Some were on the benny for a bit because they just couldn't even find a job, no one wanted them, or there's all these different situations. And so it's a bit of a sensitive topic to some,
right.
But I guess everyone's kind of in that same position where it's transitioning and they're just trying to have as much money as they can, trying to find their way. And we're all kind of in that same path at the moment.
So saving has been the core strategy, but you also, I guess, have a plan, like how you're thinking about it. You said you want to get there in 1 or 2 years. And so you must be thinking, well, how's that going to happen? You've thought about the deposit, but you also need to service the loan. Like, what's that in your mind look like? And how has Aera helped on that journey, I guess?
Well, I guess from seeing many different members' stories and their journeys and what they go through and how they think and feel, it's changed my mindset and vision on what I think about getting into your first home and what you should look for and what your target house should be as that first home, because it's not your forever home, as we say. So obviously, because my goals in the near future, within 1 to 2 years, I do want to get that first home. I'm probably not going to be able to service the mortgage by myself, but I do want to buy it solo. So my strategy has come to getting my friends to essentially pay me rent. So I'm their landlord and they pay me rent. But it also means that I still get that flatmate experience. I still get to live with my friends while I'm young, but I'm owning my own home so early, which is such a head start in life.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
So your savings is going okay, or quite well. Every now and then you dip in and out. You've set up the system with all the different pockets. The money goes in and out of it, and you're kind of operating on autopilot. What about the idea that, you said you love to travel and your friends are in all different places. How do you psychologically kind of deal with this idea that, well, a lot of people want to leave New Zealand and go on an OE, and they might want to do that in the mid-20s or early 20s, and how do you position that in terms of the home being a priority before that?
Well, I definitely do want to do a lot of travel, and I am travel driven, as I could say, but I guess you kind of have to weigh up the pros and cons. Like, do you want to set yourself up now and then build equity on your first home, and then you can do even more traveling? Or do you want to travel now, burn all your money, and come back with no job, no money, and then you're like back to square one? So you kind of have to figure it out. But I do definitely want to travel while I'm saving, but it's just creating a really strict budget on how to do that. And I don't want to travel with such a strict budget that I can't do anything, but it's making a budget that I'm comfortable with so that I can move forward.
So it's basically the next couple of years is like crack the deposit, get into the home, move in it, have flatmates, and you might be in there for 1 or 2 or 3 years, and then you might go overseas or maybe do an OE. But that, at least you've got that sorted, and then you become a landlord.
Yeah. I'll be their landlord.
Yeah, that's very cool. So you have a bunch of hacks on the savings front. I know it's not perfect, and you kind of don't stick to the line the whole time, but you also have some privilege in terms of like, look, everyone's in a different situation. But yeah, tell us about, some of the stuff that's made the biggest difference that you would encourage people to do if they can when they're young.
I guess, one of the biggest saving hacks for me has definitely been moving back home since uni. When I was renting, I just didn't, as I said, I didn't have much money. I was just spending, I didn't really care. I'd work part-time, I'd use that money every weekend. Like, I just lived the typical uni lifestyle, as most do. And then when I got back home, I honestly realized, like, you can actually save so much money, and it's such a privilege to be able to have the opportunity to go back home, because a lot of people don't. So yeah, currently I don't have too many expenses. I'm lucky I don't have to pay for rent right now, which is very fortunate, and that has saved me a lot of money this year. So my fixed expenses are more smaller things that I need or to help out around the house, or a lot smaller than it would have been last year. So I think that honestly has helped me so much, especially to get me back on my feet, because from going from zero, it's definitely helped a lot.
And yes, we realise, to be fair, not everyone can do that, but, go back home. But a lot of people can. I mean, they were just living at home a few years ago, and their parents often would love to have them back. And even if it's just, you haven't even been back a year, and it's made a huge difference, right? So I'm not sure how long you're planning to stay, but let's say you did it for 2, it would be a significant dent that you'd be making in the deposit, right?
100%. I'm also very lucky because my family want me to be back home.
Yeah.
They don't want me to leave. So there's always going to be a place there. So
yeah, not everyone's in that same situation. But I think if you can for a year or 2, then it's a huge, huge benefit, right?
100%, yeah.
Are there any other things you've done that are, really the things that are making a big difference in terms of hacks?
No, I think it's mainly moving back home, having consistent income, and creating a plan with my own savings on how I see things and how I want things to go. Because a lot of people I do know, they get a lot of money and they save a lot, then they just burn it all. So it's actually having that set plan and making sure you know what you can and can't take out that keeps you in that trajectory of going.
And so apart from like owning your own home as kind of like, I guess, an asset, and having financially, it's like a really great thing to do. What are some other motivators for you? And, you've obviously been a flatter, you've been a renter. Like, what are the other reasons that you've decided it's so important at the moment?
So when I was flatting, I realized how expensive it really is to live. So your groceries, you want to be healthy, so you want to buy all these expensive foods, you've got rent, you've got power, you've got bills, you've got all these extra things, something like breaks, you have to split it in the flat. There's all these things that you don't realize until you move back home, how much you're actually paying and how expensive it is to live. And also when you're renting, you're essentially just paying off someone else's mortgage rather than your own. So that was a main motivator for me, being like, I want to own my own home now because I want to be paying off my mortgage, not paying off someone else's.
And landlords don't particularly treat their tenants that well, overall. I mean, I don't think it's specific if you're younger or older. There's a lot of uncertainty and unreliability around how a landlord is.
100%. They could kick you out tomorrow if they really wanted to.
And in your experiences, did they take care of you? Did they take care of the house? Did they constantly fix it and do the things that you needed?
Well, we stayed in our flat for 2 years, and I mean, it was a fine flat, as fine as it could be for a student home, but it wasn't considered a healthy home. They didn't do anything to change it the whole 2 years we were there. We experienced quite a few issues with the house. They weren't necessarily a bad landlord because they were overseas. They just didn't really care at all. They just upped our rent the following year and didn't care. So we kind of experienced, especially being in Christchurch, it's freezing down there, and it was almost colder inside than it was outside.
I don't think it's a Christchurch thing. It's freezing in Auckland too. The houses are so badly insulated. It's probably much colder in a lot of houses in Auckland than it is outside.
Oh, especially when it was -1 degrees down there.
Yeah.
And we were all sick all the time. So it's kind of like, it also comes to that as well. It's just no care. They just want their money and that's it. So Derek, for most people who do need to rent and can't move back home like myself, what do you recommend for them? What should their plan be?
So I think it's 100% fair question, right? Because that's most people's scenario. I guess the idea would be to figure out what's the lowest cost that you can create your living environment to be. So where's the lowest rent you could be paying? Or if you're in an entire house that you're in at the moment, can you be flatting instead, and so that you're sharing the cost of the home? Have you checked out all of your bills and power and internet and made sure they're the cheapest? Have you got your budget sorted so that whatever your cost of living is as low as it can possibly be, so the most money that you can be going towards your, building your deposit? So obviously, if you've got outgoings every week to cost for a cost of an apartment or a house, then it's going to take longer, but it doesn't mean you should be giving up. It's just about right-sizing it and saving as fast as you can.
Well, that's also what Aera can do as well. We can create a whole game plan for you to help you get there faster.
Exactly.
Do you have any crazy flooding stories that you can remember back in the day?
Yeah, I do. I remember I was in Wellington at uni, and it was, really hard to get a flat. So you was like dying to get one over summer so that you could move in, when uni started, and I'd be the one that secured it. And when I arrived, before all the other flatmates, there was going to be 4 of my flatmates. There were no walls in the bedrooms, and there was no bathroom, and there was no shower, and there was no toilet. And of course, you're so young, you're like, I have to deal with this because there's no other apartments, there's nowhere else to go. So we all just moved in. And the landlord was fucking crazy. He made us go across the road to one of his other apartments that he'd rented to have our showers. So we were trudging along outside the house at 7 a.m. to someone else's apartment where they'd be like, what the fuck, to have a shower. Eventually, he put the walls up in the bedroom, but it took like a month and a half for him to build the bathroom. And I remember coming home often from uni at lunchtime, and the plumber was sitting on the floor watching the cricket. I was like, dude, we live in this house with no plumbing, and you're just watching the cricket. So I can appreciate, how difficult it can be, because I think that's a pretty extreme environment.
That's crazy.
But it took months and months to sort it out. So anyway, if you don't want to be renting, if you want to be owning, you don't want to be flatting, you need to figure out how to buy a first home. And that's what this podcast has been about. It's been transitioning from the environment of flatting and renting to figuring out as fast and as early as you can how you can get into your first home. If you enjoyed it, subscribe, follow us on socials, TikTok, Instagram. And if you haven't already downloaded the Aera app, then please get to the App Store on Google Play or an Apple App Store. Download it now. See you next time.